In December of 1972, humanity pulled off the impossible. We reached across the void, we touched another world, and then we just walked away. For 50 years, we didn't go back. Now, the official story, the one you'll find in textbooks, is all about budget cuts and shifting priorities. But for decades, two other stories have been whispered. Two very different and very secret explanations for why we really abandoned the moon.
So let's get right into it. We're going to unpack these two competing ideas. First up, we have what you might call the cosmic secret, a story about a terrifying discovery. Then we'll get into the earthly secret, a much more grounded story of political backstabbing and broken men. And then at the end, we've got to ask, which one is the real story?
All right, so our first story, it really revolves around this guy, Charles Duke. He was the 10th person to walk on the moon. He was Capcom for the Apollo 11 landing, a serious, credible guy. And he's the source of a story that, if it's true, well, it changes pretty much everything we think we know about our place in the universe. For 40 years, he didn't say a word, and then he started talking. According to what Duke started to reveal, his mission was just weird, plagued by things that just shouldn't happen. He talked about seeing sunlight shift into these impossible blues and purples. Both he and his commander, John Young, said they heard tones, actual sounds in the total vacuum of space where sound can't travel. They felt time itself warp, speeding up and slowing down. And maybe the creepiest thing of all, a constant, overwhelming feeling that they were being watched. But it wasn't just these strange feelings that kept him quiet. He claims that about 6 kilometers away from their lander, he saw something on a ridge, and it wasn't a natural rock formation. He described it as a wall, made of these angular, geometric blocks. It was regular, it was structured, in a way that nature just doesn't do. It was, as he put it, unmistakably constructed. And this is where the story takes a really strange turn. Think about it. Duke radios down to Houston. Hey, I'm looking at an artificial structure on the moon. And what's the response? Is it excitement? Is it a million questions? No. It's 30 seconds of dead, deliberate, chilling silence. And then a flat, emotionless voice comes back over the radio with an order. Continue with planned EVA sample collection. Just get back to collecting rocks.
Of course, before they moved on, Duke says he and Young took a ton of photos of this thing. Close-ups, wide shots, everything you'd need for analysis back on Earth. But when he later asked to see them, NASA's story kept changing. Oh, the photos were lost. Actually, they were poor quality. No, wait, they're classified for technical reasons. But Duke's response to all this has always been the same, and he's firm about it. The images were crystal clear.
So, the conclusion from this first secret narrative is pretty simple and pretty terrifying. We didn't leave the moon because of money problems. We were scared off. We found evidence of something ancient, intelligent, and way beyond us, and the people in charge decided it was just easier to pretend it wasn't there and to never go back.
But then, there's the other secret. This one doesn't have any aliens or ancient structures, but it might be even more tragic. It's a story you won't find in hushed astronaut testimonies. You find it in boring stuff, like budget memos, cancellation orders, and the psych evaluations of the men who came home.
Okay, look at this timeline of the documented facts, because it's kind of shocking. The production line for the Saturn V rocket, it was canceled in 1968. That's a full year before Neil Armstrong even took that first step. By 1970, 3 entire future moon missions were already on the chopping block. By 71, Nixon's office was seriously debating if they should even bother letting the last 2 missions fly. So when Charles Duke was on the moon in 1972, he was basically a ghost in a machine, flying a mission that was already dead. I mean, just stop and think about the absolute insanity of that for a second. We built the most powerful, most complex machine in human history, and then we decided to stop making them before we even knew if it would work. It just perfectly shows the kind of short-sighted thinking that was really running the show. So why? Why would they do that? Well, because the goal was never really the moon itself. The real goal was just to beat the Soviets. The second Apollo 11 landed, the race was over. We'd won. And almost overnight, the moon went from being this grand symbol of American destiny to just being a really, really expensive line item in a budget that was getting eaten alive by the war in Vietnam. The political will, the actual rocket fuel of the program, it just vanished. But there was another cost, one you can't measure in dollars. It's something that scientists now call the overview effect. Try to imagine it. You look out your window and you see our entire planet. Every war, every work of art, everyone you've ever loved, all just hanging there on this fragile little blue marble in an endless black emptiness. It fundamentally changes the people who see it. and that was a cost NASA had absolutely no plan for.
So how do you come back to paying bills and mowing the lawn after you've literally walked on another world? For a lot of these guys, the honest answer was, you don't. Buzz Aldrin fell into a deep spiral of depression and alcoholism. Edgar Mitchell dedicated his entire life to paranormal research. Alan Bain just quit and became an artist, spending his days painting the moon. And yeah, Charles Duke himself, the man from our first story, he returned home to a life in total crisis. These were supposed to be the most stable, most screened men on Earth, and for so many of them, the experience just broke something inside.
And that's the real point here. This was a massive institutional failure. NASA was an organization of engineers. They had brilliantly solved the physics of getting to the moon, but they had absolutely no tools, no language, not even a plan for dealing with the philosophical and psychological cost of actually bringing those men home.
So this leaves us in a pretty strange place, right? We have two totally different explanations for the exact same event. One is basically a cosmic horror story, the other is a deeply human tragedy. So which secret is the real reason we turned our backs on the moon?
When you put them side by side like this, the contrast is, well, it's pretty stark. The Cosmic Secret, it's a blockbuster movie. It gives our retreat from the moon this big, epic, mythic purpose. The Earthly Secret, honestly, it's just sad. It says we stopped going because of boring budget readings, cynical politics, and because we failed to take care of our heroes after the parade was over.
And maybe that's exactly why the story of the alien wall and the silent warning is still so popular. It's just a better story. It keeps the Apollo program feeling grand and important. It is so much more comforting to believe that our greatest adventure was cut short by some powerful, mysterious force than it is to accept the really uncomfortable truth that we reached the absolute pinnacle of human exploration and then we just got bored.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. What really killed the Apollo program? Was it some single, terrifying discovery that sent us running for home, or was it something much closer and maybe even more frightening? The tragic, all-too-human problem of having no idea what to do next after you finally made your biggest dream come true.